Canelo versus GGGI, the scorecard heard round the world. Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin in 2017 was the super fight fans waited years for. Two elite fighters in their prime, toe-to-toe for 12 grueling rounds. But when it came time for the judges to speak, they gave us a math lesson nobody could understand. While most observers had GGG winning, or at worst, a close draw, Judge Adelaide Bird dropped a bombshell. 118 to 110 for Canelo. That's 10 rounds to 2. In a fight where Canelo spent long stretches circling the ropes, the boxing world went nuclear. Even casual fans knew something was off. Promoters, analysts, and even other fighters slammed the card as corrupt or incompetent. The Nevada State Athletic Commission defended Bird briefly before quietly benching her from high-profile bouts. The controversy didn't just sour the result. It reignited the debate about closed scoring, judge accountability, and promoter influence. That one card nearly derailed the trilogy, and it remains one of the loudest calls for reform in modern boxing judging. But while Canelo GGG was controversial on paper, the next moment sparked a full-blown riot. Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz, protect yourself at all times. 2011, Las Vegas. Floyd Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz. What should have been a straightforward welterweight bout turned into one of the most bizarre knockouts in boxing history. Ortiz, already frustrated by Mayweather's slick defense, intentionally headbutted Floyd in the corner. He apologized multiple times, and the referee Joe Cortez motioned them to fight on. Ortiz went in for a sportsmanlike hug, dropped his hands, and bam bam. Mayweather dropped him cold with a left hook and right hand combo. The crowd erupted as some cheered Floyd's ruthlessness, while others booed what they saw as a cheap shot. The ref counted Ortiz out, and Mayweather famously doubled down in the post-fight interview. Protect yourself at all times. Was it legal? Technically, yes. Was it dirty? Absolutely. That sequence sparked debates over ring etiquette, referee clarity, and the blurred line between cunning and classless. Mayweather walked out the winner, but the moment left a lasting dent in his legacy. And while Mayweather was accused of being too cold, the next controversy burned down an entire promotion. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. The split decision nobody saw coming. It was the influencer circus meets boxing legitimacy. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury in February 2023 wasn't just a clash of egos. It was billed as Jake's first real boxer test. And to be fair, it delivered on drama. But when the split decision was announced, confusion reigned. Fury boxed cleaner, sharper, and more technically throughout most of the bout. He controlled the jab, scored more, and avoided Jake's wild rights. Yet one judge gave it to Paul, sparking instant outrage across the boxing internet. Fans accused the judges of being starstruck or leaning into the hype machine. Even veteran analysts questioned how a card so lopsided could result in a split. While Fury walked away with the win, the scoring controversy was all anyone talked about. The backlash reignited discussions about transparency in scoring, judge training, and whether big money fights can ever be fairly judged. If you thought social media boxing was a joke, this fight proved the stakes, and the fury, are very real. But if Jake Paul's scorecard caused Twitter to melt down, the next moment caused an entire arena to riot. Riddick Bowe versus Andrew Golota. The riot at Madison Square Garden, July 11th, 1996. Riddick Bowe versus Andrew Golota. What started as a decent heavyweight scrap ended in chaos the sport had never seen before and hasn't seen till today. Golota was holding his own against Bowe, even winning rounds, but for some reason he couldn't stop throwing low blows. After repeated warnings, the referee finally disqualified him in round 7. That's when all hell broke loose. Bowe's team stormed the ring and Golota's people followed as fists swung, turning Madison Square Garden into an all-out brawl and a full-scale riot broadcast live on HBO. The fight and its aftermath weren't just a black eye for boxing, they triggered serious safety reforms. Golota's illegal blows sparked the disqualification, but it was the riot that forced boxing to reckon with what happens when the violence spills outside the ropes. And just when we thought things couldn't get more absurd, the next controversy came from a man who didn't even show up. David Haye versus Tyson Fury, the fight that never happened. Back in 2013, the UK boxing world was buzzing. David Haye versus Tyson Fury was signed, sealed, and hyped to the moon. Two charismatic trash talkers, two knockout artists, and one epic clash in the making. until Haye pulled out not only once, but twice. First, it was a cut over the eye, then a shoulder injury, both last minute. Fury, furious, pun intended, accused Haye of ducking, calling the withdrawals career sabotage. Fans were devastated and promoters were livid. Haye's reputation took a nosedive, while Fury's stock ironically rose without even throwing a punch. The fallout sparked a backlash against medical pullouts without stricter proof. British commissions revisited transparency rules around last-minute cancellations and how fighters are evaluated before pulling out of signed bouts. This wasn't just a case of bad luck, it was a rare instance where not fighting created more controversy than the fight itself. If you've made it this far, you're clearly a boxing fan. Please hit that like button and subscribe. I've got plenty more coming your way. And while Haye never stepped in the ring that night, the next controversy came from a man who arguably shouldn't have. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus Meldrick Taylor. 2 seconds too soon. On March 17, 1990. It was the fight of the decade between Meldrick Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. for junior welterweight supremacy. Taylor boxed beautifully for 11 rounds, landing flurries, circling smooth and racking up points. Chavez, meanwhile, kept marching forward, eating shots and setting traps. Then came round 12. With just seconds left, Chavez landed a punishing right hand that dropped Taylor. He rose at the count of 6. Dazed, yes, but on his feet. But referee Richard Steele, with only 2 seconds left in the entire fight, waved it off and Chavez won by TKO, technical knockout. Many felt Taylor was robbed and the arena exploded in disbelief. The moment became one of boxing's most debated finishes, as critics argued that Steele should have let it continue, while others defended the call, citing Taylor's blank expression. That's how one ref's 2-second decision rewrote how the final seconds are judged forever. And if that ending was controversial, the next one was straight up supernatural. Daniel Cormier, Towelgate at UFC 210. You want controversy? This one's not just controversial, it's unbelievable. This one isn't from a boxing ring, but it might be the slickest weigh-in move ever caught on camera. April 2017, UFC 210. Daniel Cormier, an Olympic wrestler, double champ, and one of MMA's most respected figures, steps on the scale ahead of his title defense against Anthony "Rumble" Johnson. He weighs in at 206.2 pounds, a full pound over the light heavyweight limit. That should have meant another weight cut or he'd lose the belt. But just 2 minutes later, DC returns, no sweat, no jog, no sauna suit, and steps back on. 205.0 pounds on the dot, the room blinked and Twitter exploded. Eagle-eyed fans caught it fast. DC was leaning on the towel his team was holding to cover him. A little downward pressure, a little physics magic, and boom, he made weight. It became known as DC's Towelgate. Years later, DC owned up to it saying, "I may have grabbed the towel in Buffalo. It wasn't in the rule book, but it sure rewrote how every weigh-in is watched from now on." And while DC's crime was hidden by a towel, the next scandal was plain as day. Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder I, a knockdown or a resurrection. December 1st, 2018. The undefeated power of Deontay Wilder versus the slick genius of Tyson Fury. For 11 rounds, Fury outboxed Wilder with feints, jabs, and clownish head movements. But in round 12, Wilder finally landed a right-left combo that flattened Fury. His body stiff with eyes rolled back, and the crowd thought it was over. Then, somehow, Fury rose like The Undertaker at the count of 9. The fight ended in a controversial split draw, and fans erupted. Wilder fans cried robbery while Fury fans screamed injustice. But everyone asked, was that a slow count? The replay became internet legend as critics claimed the referee, Jack Reese, gave Fury extra seconds. Others praised him for letting the moment play out because Fury beat the count. In the aftermath, the WBC reviewed count timing guidelines, while boxing forums still argue over the footage to this day. The drama of that final round gave birth to a trilogy, but the moment itself, it still lives in slow motion. And from controversial results, we move to a fighter whose punches were anything but soft. Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley Lurie, the robbery of the decade, June 9th, 2012. Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley. His 115-113 card for Bradley, but only few bought it. The backlash led to multiple investigations by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and even a review from US senators. It became a case study in everything wrong with boxing scoring: bias, inconsistency, and lack of transparency. Bradley won on paper, but Pacquiao won the war of perception. And that night, boxing once again showed how a single bad decision can undermine an entire sport. Pacquiao lost a fight he clearly won, but at least he stayed composed, while the next guy, he lost the fight and then lost his mind on live TV. Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk 2, the mic drop meltdown. In August 2022, Saudi Arabia. Anthony Joshua had just lost his rematch to Alexander Usyk in a masterclass of footwork and finesse. But the post-fight scene was what made history. After the decision was announced correctly in Usyk's favor, Joshua had an uncharacteristic breakdown. He grabbed the mic, went on a strange rant about his background, his struggle, and even Ukraine. Then he stormed out of the ring, came back, threw down the belts, and rambled again. It wasn't foul play, it wasn't a robbery, but it was bizarre, uncomfortable, and for some, it was disrespectful. The fallout was swift. Critics blasted him. Trainers and mental health advocates stepped in with concern. But most notably, broadcasters and promoters began tightening post-fight mic access. Media handlers were instructed to delay interviews until adrenaline subsided, and PR teams began pushing for emotional cool-down protocols after major events. Joshua's outburst didn't change a scorecard, but it changed how fighters are allowed to speak in the heat of heartbreak. And while that was emotional from real punches, we go to an imaginary one, the most debated ghost KO of all time. Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston 2, the Phantom Punch. May 25th, 1965. The rematch between Muhammad Ali and Sonny Liston was supposed to settle a score. Instead, it created an eternal mystery. Early in round 1, Ali threw a lightning-fast right that barely seemed to connect, but Liston fell hard. He squirmed on the mat as referee confusion followed. Was it a knockdown? Was he acting? Ali shouted at him to get up, and after a weird, staggered count, the fight was over. To this day, no one agrees on what actually happened. Some say it was a real punch, a short right hand that caught Liston cold. Others think Liston took a dive, pressured by outside forces. Mob ties, death threats, and political chaos swirled around the event. The aftermath forced commissions to clean up officiating protocols. Standardized knockdown counts, better ref positioning, and clearer fighter response requirements were all implemented in years to come. The Phantom Punch wasn't just about optics, it was about trust and how fast boxing could lose it. And speaking of losing trust, the next controversy involved a fighter no one trusted, but everyone paid to watch. Adrian Broner versus Marcos Maidana, the shoulder hump heard around the world. December 2013. Adrian Broner was undefeated, flashy, and called himself the next Floyd. But Marcos Maidana wasn't impressed, and neither was the ref. In a beatdown that saw Broner knocked down twice, Maidana also slipped in a little extra. A shoulder bump to the face while Broner was recovering. Chaos followed. Broner flopped, then launched himself into Maidana. The ref deducted a point, but let the fight continue. Broner lost badly. But the shoulder hump moment went viral. Some called it dirty, while others called it psychological warfare. What it did do was force the ABC, Association of Boxing Commissions, to revisit the rulebook's vagueness around fouls during break sequences. New language was introduced to clarify illegal body contact, and commissions started emphasizing positional control to avoid retaliation-based fouls. Maidana won that night with fists and frustration, but the shoulder shove? That made it onto every most disrespectful moments in boxing list and into the rulebook margins. And there you have it, the wildest, weirdest, and most controversial moments in boxing history explained. These moments didn't just shake up the sport, they reshaped it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button, drop a comment with your pick for the most outrageous boxing moment ever, and don't forget to subscribe for more fight history, deep dives, scandals, and showdowns. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next round.